Emma's discovery in her grandfather's papers changed everything. Mom, Grandpa wasn't just studying those symbols. He was protecting them. There's some kind of ancient warning system. And get this, the Whitman family was involved in covering up his accident. Sarah accelerated toward the coordinates Marcus had left, her mind racing. The location was at the edge of Oakwood Estates, where construction had first begun in 1987. She arrived just as the sun touched the horizon. A familiar figure stood waiting, thinner, grayer, but unmistakably Uncle Marcus. "Your late favorite niece," he said, his old grin unchanged. "Ready to see what your grandfather died protecting." As the sunset's angle hit the ground, the remaining circular symbols began to glow with a faint blue luminescence. "Quantum-locked warning markers," Marcus explained, his voice reverent. The ancient civilization that left them used a technology we're only beginning to understand. Your grandfather found them, and the Whitmans have been trying to destroy them ever since. Sarah's phone rang. "Emma again. Mom, I'm with your lawyer. We found Grandpa's actual accident report. Barbara Whitman's father signed off on it. But get this, he wasn't even working for the county then. The whole thing was falsified." Everything clicked. The rushed property seizures, the immediate construction, the systematic destruction of the symbols. The Whitmans weren't just greedy developers. They were erasing evidence. The next week became a blur of legal proceedings. Sarah's evidence, combined with Marcus's testimony and the falsified accident report, sparked a federal investigation. The archaeological significance of the site, now undeniable with Marcus's documented research, brought in the State Historical Preservation Office. The FBI's investigation revealed decades of corruption. Barbara Whitman and her family had been using the HOA as a front to seize properties containing these ancient markers, systematically destroying them to build luxury homes. When the story broke nationally, other victims came forward from planned communities across the country. In the end, justice came swiftly. The Whitman family faced federal charges for fraud, conspiracy, and the cover-up of James Chen's death. Summit Ridge Developments was forced to halt construction and return all illegally seized properties. The HOA board was dissolved, replaced by a resident-led council with strict oversight. Sarah's lot, along with the other sites containing symbols, was designated as a protected historical landmark. Marcus, no longer needing to hide, took a position as lead researcher at a new archaeological institute established to study the markers. Emma got into Berkeley's pre-med program, but switched to archaeology after her first semester, determined to continue her grandfather's work. As for Sarah, she kept her ER job in Chicago, but bought a small house near her lot in Oakwood Estates. On clear evenings, she sits watching the sunset with Uncle Marcus, as the ancient symbols glow their quiet warning about what still lies sleeping deep beneath the manicured lawns of California's most exclusive planned community. Some mysteries, they agreed, were better left as mysteries. But at least now they were protected mysteries, guarded not by secrecy and corruption, but by truth and the law. Sarah Chen's surgical gloves were slick with blood as she fought to clamp the severed artery. The trauma bay's monitors screamed in protest as her patient's vitals plummeted. "Push another unit of O-neg," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. The young gunshot victim on her table wasn't going to become another statistic, not on her watch. Her phone vibrated against her hip for the 5th time that morning, but Sarah remained focused. After 16 years in Chicago Memorial's ER, she'd learned that seconds could separate life from death. 3 hours and countless sutures later, she finally stepped out of the OR, exhausted but satisfied. Another life saved. "Dr. Chen," a nurse caught her attention. "Your daughter's school called. Again." Sarah sighed, fishing her phone from her scrubs. She'd missed 2 calls from Emma's principal, one from her mortgage company, and a number she didn't recognize with a California area code. As she was about to return the school's call, an email notification popped up, URGNT, regarding the estate of Marcus Chen. Uncle Marcus. The name brought back a flood of memories. His wild theories about ancient civilizations, The Christmas he gave her a certified unicorn horn, actually a narwhal tusk he'd somehow acquired. The way he'd randomly send her articles about supernatural phenomena with sticky notes saying, "Keep your mind open, favorite niece." She hadn't heard from him since he'd vanished in the Mojave Desert 3 years ago, chasing what he claimed were extraterrestrial architect signatures in the rock formations. The certified letter arrived the next day. Sarah opened it during her coffee break, expecting perhaps some old books or her uncle's infamous collection of cursed objects. Instead, she found herself staring at property deed documents for a vacant lot in Oakwood Estates, California's most exclusive planned community. Estimated value, $2.4 million. Attached was a handwritten note in Marcus's distinctive scroll, "Watch the shadows at sunset. They know." The same cryptic style he used in his last known communication, a postcard featuring desert petroglyphs that had arrived 2 days after he disappeared. The property paperwork came with several stern notices about HOA compliance and upcoming dues, along with a warning about maintaining the lot's archaeological integrity. Sarah's pager buzzed, another trauma rolling in, but her eyes caught on a final line in Marcus's note she'd initially missed. "The symbols must remain undisturbed. Lives depend on it." As she rushed back to the ER, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her uncle's gift was more than just a valuable piece of real estate. The way he'd underlined shadows 3 times, the strange geometric drawings in the margins of his note, the mention of archaeological integrity, it all hinted at something bigger, something that might explain why her brilliant but eccentric uncle had vanished without a trace. What she didn't know then was that the contents of that letter would soon turn her carefully ordered life upside down, pulling her into a mystery that would make her question everything she thought she knew about her family, her uncle, and the true value of his final gift. The email from Uncle Marcus's account contained only an address: Room 23, Sunset Inn. Sarah's medical instincts screamed that this was reckless, but she found herself pulling into the motel's parking lot anyway. The room's door was ajar. Inside, no Marcus, but the walls were covered with photos, newspaper clippings, and red strings connecting them all, like something from a crime show. A yellow post-it caught her eye. "Barbara Whitman, follow the money." Beneath it, a complex web of documents showed how the HOA president's family had systematically acquired 11 properties in Oakwood Estates over the past decade, all through suspicious priority lien sales. Each previous owner had inherited their lot. Each sale happened exactly 3 months after the original owner's first missed HOA payment. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Get out now." She grabbed what she could, stuffing papers into her bag. As she rushed to her car, a black SUV with tinted windows crawled past the motel. The driver's face was hidden, but she glimpsed an Oakwood Estates parking sticker on the windshield. At her hotel, Sarah spread out her findings. The pattern was impossible to miss. Every seized property had those same circular markings Uncle Marcus had photographed. A newspaper article from 1987 mentioned unusual archaeological findings during Oakwood Estates' initial construction. The lead archaeologist, Dr. James Chen, Marcus's father, her grandfather, had died in a hiking accident 2 days after filing his preliminary report. Her laptop pinged. An email from Barbara Whitman herself. "Dr. Chen, let's discuss this like reasonable people. The Oakwood Estates Heritage Committee is prepared to offer you fair market value for Lot 2487. This offer expires at sunset." Sarah's hands trembled as she opened the attached contract. Movement caught her eye, a shadow under her door. Before she could react, the lock clicked. 2 men in suits entered, their faces professionally blank. "Mrs. Whitman sends her regards," one said, reaching for Sarah's laptop. What happened next surprised everyone, especially Sarah. Her years of handling violent patients in the ER kicked in. A well-placed elbow, a strategic knee, and both men lay groaning. She grabbed her evidence and Uncle's notebooks, then fled down the fire escape. In her rental car, heart pounding, Sarah found one last note from the motel room. Coordinates and a time. Below them, Marcus's handwriting. The symbols aren't decorative. They're warnings. What's buried beneath Oakwood Estates was meant to stay buried. The Whitmans know. That's why they're building so fast. Meet me where it all began. Sunset. Today. Sarah checked her watch. 2 hours until sunset. Her phone lit up with Emma's text. Mom, you won't believe what I just found in Grandpa Chen's old research papers. 3 months of unread HOA emails, buried in her old Yahoo account, didn't seem important until Emma squealed at her laptop screen one Sunday morning. Mom, Berkeley has this amazing pre-med program, and it's only 40 minutes from Oakwood Estates. Sarah looked up from her patient charts, catching her daughter's infectious enthusiasm. Maybe it was time to check out the California property. The property tax bill had mentioned something about required lot maintenance. The flight to San Francisco gave Sarah time to finally dig through her uncle's papers. Marcus's documentation was a maze of sticky notes and coffee stains. But one thing stood out: a series of photographs showing strange circular markings in the soil, each dated precisely at sunset. On the back of one photo, he'd scribbled coordinates that matched her inherited lot's location. Oakwood Estates loomed ahead as Sarah's rental car wound through pristine streets. The neighborhood screamed old money, manicured lawns, luxury cars, and houses that belonged in architectural magazines. Her GPS chimed. Destination ahead on right. Sarah pulled over, double-checking the address. This couldn't be right. Where satellite images had shown an empty lot stood a massive Mediterranean-style mansion, its stone facade gleaming in the afternoon sun. Construction equipment dotted the property, and workers moved purposefully around scaffolding that hugged the building's eastern wing. "Excuse me," Sarah called out to a worker carrying blueprints. "There must be some mistake. This is lot 2487, right?" The foreman, his hair covered in safety stickers, nodded. "Sure is. Summit Ridge's newest project. We broke ground 3 months ago." He paused, noticing her expression. "You with the Historical Society? Because we already handled those weird concrete symbols we found during excavation. All properly documented and removed, per city ordinance." Sarah's blood ran cold. Symbols? Yeah. Bunch of circular markings laid in old concrete, pretty similar to those drawings. He pointed to the papers clutched in her hand. Uncle Marcus's photographs. Had to bring in a special team to remove them. Mrs. Whitman from the HOA was real specific about how it needed to be handled. The world tilted sideways. Sarah grabbed her phone, pulling up her uncle's last email. There it was, hidden in his rambling postscript. "Barbara Whitman is the key. She's been watching the lot since 1987. Don't let her." The message cut off mid-sentence. Back in her car, Sarah's hands shook as she called the county records office. The clerk's voice was apologetic but firm. "According to our files, lot 2487 was sold to Summit Ridge Developments through a priority lane sale. All notices were sent to the email address on file, and when no response was received." Sarah barely heard the rest. Her screen lit up with a new email from her uncle's account. The timestamp read 3 minutes ago. The subject line: "Now you know why I had to disappear."